Welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast.
Well, welcome to the Stephen Mansfield Podcast. I'm so glad you've joined me. I want to dive right in this episode to a topic that I've touched on before, but that bores the heck out of most people. How's that for an introduction? I want to talk to you about some demographics. Now, I find this fascinating. I think it's a key to understanding the world. I think it's important for our society, and particularly if you live in the West, if you live in Europe or the United States, Canada, for example, you are being affected by these trends in major ways. So let me start by telling you the macro fact that is critical to understanding all that I'm going to talk about. It requires a birth rate of 2.1 just to maintain a population. Okay? So if you have a birth rate in a given country and it's 2.1 or above, then you are replacing that population. You are maintaining, or if it's of course more than 2.1, you are growing that population. Now that's really, really important because you may have a welfare economy to some extent. You may have social services. You may have Social Security. You're expecting young workers to pay into a Social Security account, for example, that then funds older workers. That's the whole assumption of the U.S. Social Security system, that young workers will pay in, and that will then fund those who are retired. And then the young workers, when they retire, will be funded by still others. But not if you have a declining population, because that way you'll never have enough young workers to fund the older workers. So this makes a lot of sense. Also, this powers political and cultural changes. If in England, the Muslim population has a birth rate way above 2.1, and the traditional Anglo population has a birth rate way below 2.1, well, then you are growing a Muslim England. There's just no question about it. I'm not saying that with any rancor or bitterness. I'm just simply saying that's the way it is. And by the way, the birth rates in much of the Muslim world are sky high, 5 point something, 6 point something in some cases. But the birth rates in the West are below 2.1. Throughout most of Europe, below 2.1. In Italy, half the required replacement number. In some countries, hardly just below half. The U.S. now has just barely a 2.1% birth rate, and that's largely because of Hispanics. If you want to be grateful for the 2.1 birth rate we have, hug a Hispanic baby, because their birth rate is making the difference. In the U.S., black birth rate, the birth rate amongst blacks is twice that of whites, and birth rate among Hispanics is 5 times that of whites. That's just the pattern that we're going through. So as a result, there are some definite changes happening in the West. And what I suggest you do, whatever country you're in, and I'm grateful for all of those of you who live around the world who listen to this podcast, look at your country, ask 2 questions. Number 1, what is the average age in our country, in my country? In Iran, it's 24. The average age is 24. That tells us something. In the Philippines, the average age is 22. Tells us important things about what's possible, what's coming, what's happening in that country. In the U.S., it's 38 years old. In England, it's 44 years old. What does that tell you? You have aging populations in the U.S. and England. You have young, vibrant congregations, young, vibrant generations is what I meant to say, in the Philippines and in Iran. This tells you something. For those of us who work internationally, very, very important information. The other thing you want to ask yourself is, what is our birth rate? In Middle Eastern countries, like I say, 5 point something, 6 point something, sky high. In the U.S., barely 2.1. Throughout Europe, not even 2.1. Not in any European country is the birth rate even 2.1. Now, let me tell you what this is going to mean, for example, just in the United States. I'm going to use the United States as an example, not because I don't care about other countries, but because I want to just give you the clearest example for which we have the best demographics, the best statistics, okay? The United States is going to reach a tipping point in 2040. In the 2040s, we're going to reach a major, irreversible tipping point when it comes to age. Okay? By that time, only 45% of 30-year-olds will be non-Hispanic whites. Okay, so now that's I stated that in statistical language, but here's what's really going on. By 2040, present trends continuing, and there's really no way to reverse the present trends, 45% of 30-year-olds are going to be non-Hispanic whites, meaning that whites will be a minority in the U.S. There'll be a statistical minority, at least in that age group, 30-year-olds. Among 30-year-olds, there will be a minority of whites. Now, I want to say two things almost at the same time. Number one, I don't care. On the one hand, I don't really care what color the people in the United States are. I'm the least racist person on the planet. I am delighted with all racists. I am thankful. This is not me making a KKK case here. Hey, look out. Non-whites are taking over. That's not what I'm saying. But it will produce a shift. It will produce a change. It does mean a demographic change. It does mean a rise in the Hispanic community. That's going to produce cultural changes. That's going to produce political changes. It makes a difference. It's going to produce foreign policy changes. It just will. Also, some other things we need to know. Not only is that true, but nearly 1 in 4 Americans will be unaffiliated with any religion, including 30% of 30 to 44-year-olds. Okay? That's, again, a shift that we're heading towards. 1 in 4 Americans will be unaffiliated with any religion. Okay? 1 in 5 Americans will be over the age of 65. Now, that's huge. 1/5, 20% of the United States will be over the age of 65. It's going to put a huge strain on healthcare and a huge strain on Social Security. Okay, it's something we need to know about. If you're a statesman, if you're in political leadership, if you're involved in healthcare, these are trends that define your world. In fact, they're going to define all of our worlds pretty soon, because 1 in 5 Americans will be over the age of 65 by 2040. Okay? Minorities, this is going back to my early point, will become the majority in the U.S. by 2045. So minorities are together going to be the majority in the U.S. by 2045. Do you see how these birth rates change a society? And again, I want to say clearly, I'm not making any of these cases based on some racist fear that more brown-skinned people will be in America than white-skinned, but they will come with cultural changes. They will come with shifts. I mean, some of you are heading to college, you even need to decide what language to major in. Obviously, if you're going to live in America, you're going to need to major in Spanish. Because if you're young, let's say you're 20 right now, before you retire, before you shake off this khaki coil, you will live in a world that will be more than half Hispanic. That's just the way it's going to be, okay? And this issue of the increase of the aging, 1 in 5 Americans, huge importance, okay? Very, very important. Immigrants are going to make up a record-breaking share of the population. So you're going to have an America where people might be committed to American distinctives, but they're going to be from other countries. They're going to be immigrants. Immigrants are going to make a huge portion. And by the way, Islam is going to surpass Judaism by 2040, okay, as our second religion. Our second religion right now, Christianity is number 1 in America, Judaism's number 2. But by 2040, Islam will pass up Judaism, okay? Again, important things. The share of Christians, as I've already said, are going to decline. I've already said 1 in 4 Americans will be unaffiliated with religion. And globally, there will be just as many 30 to 44-year-old Muslims as Christians of the same age. Okay, you see the shift. I'm not saying that Christianity is going away. I'm just saying it's going to be challenged purely because of birth rates. We're not talking about conversions here. We're talking about birth rates. Now listen to this. Just 20 years ago, less than half the world lived in urban areas. In another 20 years, close to 2/3 of the world will live in cities. We are becoming an urban race. We don't need as many people living on farms. We don't need as many people living in urban, suburban situations or rural situations. And so 2/3 of the world in 20 years will live in cities. Cities are growing. They're becoming the hot thing. I live in 2 cities and love cities, love that whole life. But I'm saying that's the trend. People are flooding into cities. Cities are becoming places with increased technology and sanitation, what have you. They're becoming better places to live around the world, and that's where people want to be. Okay? An American child born in the U.S. will be expected to live to 83 years old, according to UN projections, 5 years longer than today. So in short, people in the future will be increasingly non-white. They will be older statistically. They will live longer. And they are more likely, in terms of the United States, to be immigrants from other places. We're going to be living in an increasingly global society. We're going to be living longer. We're going to have to find new ways of funding health care for the elderly, new ways of Social Security. I suggest, of course, all the time that people who are, really any people, especially in Western delivery systems, Western governmental systems, hope for the success of those systems, Social Security, welfare, etc., but not count on them in their old age. Just plan as though they're not going to exist. And then if they do, you've got a bonus. And that, by the way, is going to affect me. I'll be in that age range. I'll be in retirement when many of these things, if I ever retire, I'll be certainly in my older age when many of these systems are supposed to be strained. Now, I want to give you the macro lesson here. While we're paying attention to the latest hassle in D.C. or the latest military action around the world, demographic changes are absolutely transforming your world. Ask these 2 questions. What's the average age in your society? And does the birth rate in your society exceed 2.1? These will determine the changes. And by the way, you've already seen, I've already modeled for you that you don't just ask what the national birth rate, ask what it is, you ask for what the birth rate is of every ethnic group within your country. Most countries are made up of a combination of ethnicities, so ask what the birth rates are of those different ethnicities, and you'll be able to project what your country is going to look like in so many years. And it's not just about skin color. It's about culture. It's about religion. It's about shift in values. It's about what a society is going to look like. The world is changing. And I got to tell you, I welcome it in most cases. Absolutely welcome it. I welcome people living longer. I'm perfectly fine to live in a largely non-white society. Doesn't bother me in the least. This is just the way human history is. Doesn't bother me to all of these things. But be aware that cultures are shifting and governments are going to be strained by these demographic trends. You want to pay attention to these things. You want to keep an eye on these things. You want to Google these things from time to time. You want to stay on top of these trends because they are shaping your world. And this is how we understand the world in which we're made to live.
Stephen Mansfield is a New York Times best-selling author, a popular speaker, and a frequent faith and culture commentator on Fox and CNN. His groundbreaking books on faith and society include The Faith of George W. Bush, The Search for God in Guinness, Mansfield's Book of Manly Men, and Lincoln's Battle with God. Learn more at stephenmansfield.tv.